Hello class, this is Dr. Reyes-Fournier coming to you live, and we have today our wrap-up for week 4, where we're talking about different therapy styles to work with Tom, the gambler. I'm not going to talk about Tom so much. I'm going to talk about the different therapies that you went over this week. Specifically, I want you to get more in-depth information on them because they're often used in addiction treatment. Let's start with motivational interviewing. Motivational interviewing is probably the newer one to the bunch. It is used widely in addiction treatment because it focuses on the client's ability to change, and it uses the change process to push the client along. It does not have any issues with ambivalence, which is that, I don't even know if I want to change. I'm cool where I am. It doesn't care about resistance because it rolls with it. It is a conversational style that if you can learn it, it will help you in every kind of therapy, not just substance abuse. It'll help you with every kind. So the 5 principles, as many of you brought up: you express empathy, you develop discrepancy. A lot of you didn't even mention the discrepancy part, which is really important. This is where you show the client, these are your goals, and this is what you're doing right now. What you're doing right now is never going to get you your goal. But you're not telling them that. The way that you present it to them is for them to see that, what they're doing isn't going to get them what they want. So, for example, a client will say things like, well, I don't have a drug problem. And then you could say things like, well, let's talk about your goals. And the goal is, well, I want to get my kids back. And then you're like, okay, well, my understanding is that you need to test clean for 6 months to be able to get your kids back. So, is what you're doing right now going to get you your kids back? You ask them the question because they have to come up with their own answers. If they continue to think, oh, no, but the drugs aren't a problem, you're pointing out that obviously it is a problem because you're never going to get your kids back if you continue to use. And motivational interviewing is one of those only therapies that you do while the client is still using. Most of the therapies developed are, specifically after they stop using. And motivational interviewing is something that you could use while they're still currently in their addiction. Expressing empathy, that's something that you should be doing all the time. We need to normalize what they're feeling. Sometimes they feel like, no one's ever felt like this. It's like, I've seen this many times, and I understand how difficult this can be to make these decisions, to understand what's going on with you. You want to strike that, partnership with them in the sense that you are there for them to get better. Let's see, I'm going to keep going down. Expressing empathy, developing discrepancy. We already talked about that. We do not argue. We never argue with a client. You know why? If we argue with a client, we already lost. We don't need to be right. We're not going in there to convince them of something. If they want to continue to use, or if they want to continue to behave the way they do, all you do is you continue to point out, look, I'm just saying that what you're doing isn't going to get you what you want. And, I'm here to facilitate, your goals. And that's it. And there's no other reason why I'm there. Rolling with resistance. You are going to be using empathy and things like that. When clients are like, I don't want to talk to you, and you're like, no, I totally get it. I get it. It's very difficult. You don't know me. You don't know if I'm going to be cool about this. You talk to them like that. We're not there to badger people and to force them into something. They have to choose to do this. Reframing is taking something and making them look at it in a different light. So when you're like, oh no, I'm always working, you're like, hey, you're a hardworking person, aren't you? So taking it from that, victim, I'm always working to, wow, you're really hardworking. That makes them look at it differently. Okay? Taking responsibility for what they do. I'm going to be giving you this. Oh, supporting self-efficacy. This is a big one, and you'll see it also in solution focus. Self-efficacy is that understanding that you can do something. Okay? And what we're finding, self-efficacy is a theory, or is a term that Albert Bandura came up with, and it's about, I can do this. And apparently, with all the research that they're doing, is that self-efficacy is probably the biggest determining factor of whether or not you can do something. So if a client says something like, I believe I can get my kids back, you're like, great. You need to have that attitude. Or, I believe I can do this. Fantastic. Yes, I'm really proud that you're thinking that way. Blah, 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 blah. That's very important. I'm going to be giving you that article so you can look at it. Solution-focused therapy. Solution-focused therapy is actually newer than motivational interviewing, and it's used a lot in treatment because it's considered a brief therapy, and you're only focused on the solution. Here's the caveat to it, and they often don't mention it because they think it's so awesome, but it is very difficult to focus solely on the present and the future with somebody who is currently addicted and who has not accepted the fact that they are having a problem. Because if you don't understand that you have a problem, why would you even think of a solution for it? Okay? And this is one of the issues I had with people suggesting this for Tom, because Tom's not really thinking he has a problem yet. He's not convinced he has a problem. Okay, so I'm going to be giving you this website so you could read this over. The solution-focused therapist is looking at what is it that's worked before for you and work with that. And then, you're in a partnership with them. You're in a, it's like you are working together at coming up with these solutions. And the sessions are more like meetings because you're there to negotiate and you're there to help them figure things out. It's very clear, it's concise. You're not talking about feelings at all. You're talking about, okay, what are you going to do? Okay, so your gambling's an issue. So how are you not going to gamble? Okay, so then we're going to do this one day at a time. Instead of gambling, you're going to do this. And then you actually come up with plans on how to fix this. One of the coolest things that they do, and actually it's used in other therapies too, but it's the miracle question. The miracle question is one of those things that, it almost is like one of these things just doesn't belong here. The miracle question really doesn't look like it belongs in solution-focused therapy at all, because it's asking them not to focus on the reality, but to focus on almost like the magical. If you woke up tomorrow and you are no longer gambling and you didn't have financial debt and you were okay with your wife and your friends, Tom, what would it be like? Tell me what your day would be like. And then Tom would be like, oh no, it'd be great because I can go to work, concentrate on my work, get things done, get home, be with my wife and have a nice dinner and, just be together and laugh and like we used to. Now, what that does is it forces the client to look at the fact that their life doesn't look like that right now. And it forces them to see that, yeah, maybe I do need to change some things because that miracle sounds really good. And the idea is to convince them that they are in charge of that miracle and they can make that come true. So that's why one of the things, I don't think that really belongs there because, it seems so fluffy, whereas they're not very fluffy. Cognitive restructuring. Cognitive restructuring is an old Albert Ellis thing. It's part of cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive restructuring is looking at your distorted thoughts. what are Tom's distorted thoughts? Tom thinks that gambling is good, or who was it that said that? I think Lynette said that if I keep gambling, I'm going to win big. That's the distorted gambling thought. And by the video that I posted yesterday, you could see that they don't even care if they win. They're just about the bet, too. They're just as excited about betting as they are about winning. So you focus on what is that. Let's find that distorted thought. Then Albert Ellis was very much about using logic with these things. Look at these weird thoughts that you're having and test them. Looking at your thought patterns like a scientist. Track the accuracy of the thought. So, Tom, track the accuracy. When you are betting, are you winning? No, you're not. Okay, because that's why you're in debt. And you want to point those things out to them, because that thought is wrong. And that is what's motivating the behavior. Then test it. Go out there and test it. Now, of course, when you're gambling, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Okay? But the idea is that overall, he's probably going to lose. You're going to evaluate the evidence, which is looking at the losses, looking at the fact that you are in debt, that you're lying to people. So obviously, those thoughts do not work. Mindful meditation. The idea is that, when those thoughts come up, push that thought away and concentrate on something else. Breathe, do something to take your mind off of it. Be nice to yourself, self-compassion. That is one of the biggest problems that people have, is that they're too hard on themselves. And even in Tom's case, and most addicts' case, one of the reasons why they choose not to stop is that the moment that they stop, they get really hard on themselves, and they're very mean to themselves, and they punish themselves. And using again, and even relapse, is almost a sign of self-punishment, because they're saying, you know what, I don't deserve to live, or you know what, I don't deserve to have these people love me because I'm just a jerk, or and I'll never get better, and I just keep hurting people. And that's another distorted thought that needs to be addressed and attacked and negated and investigated, and all the good stuff that you need to do when you do cognitive restructuring. So in my opinion, being where Tom was at, I would start with motivational interviewing. I'd hit him up with some cognitive restructuring to have him see that some of his thoughts were just not working, and that are distorted thoughts. And then once all of that is handled, and once he's established, yes, I have a gambling problem, I need to stop it, then I would hit him up with some solution focused. And that's what the big part of the question is to see that you could use all these techniques. And a therapist is only as good as his toolbox. If you have all of these therapies to pull from, the more therapies that you understand and know how to use, you have more things to help your clients. So, this week's All-Stars, who did a great job in their discussion: Shannon McCauley, Jeremy Whiting, Jessica Phoebus, William Brown. Excellent job. Have a great week, everybody, and I will talk to you soon. If you have any questions, email me, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.